All right. Welcome, everybody, to Two Nerds in a Pod, episode 150. Today is, July 28th, 2020, and it's time to get nerdy. This is the nerdiest gaming podcast in the universe, as you know, bonded by our love of video games. I am one of your two hosts, myself, Maction, tech enthusiast and occasional streamer, and my comrade in gaming commentary and podcasting, Mr. Lam Galuka, also known as Mr. Nice Guy. Our 1 hour mission to bring you news, issues, history, crowdfunding, trivia, and lawsuits important to video games. And, man, we're pretty happy to be here. Thrilled to be here. Thrilled to have you here. And we've got some announcements today, don't we?
We sure do, and I'm ecstatic to be here, Mac. I don't think thrilled is the word I was looking for. I'm ecstatic. What announcements do we have? I don't even know.
Oh, okay. So, as of this record, we have a handful of days remaining for the podcast awards. So, just as a quick bit, if we happen to be in the top 10 voted of our category, which is games and hobbies, then we get a full panel review of our show and stand a real chance. We just have to get over that hurdle. We're not winning a popularity contest. We're just winning 10th place in a popularity contest is what I'm hoping. So if you haven't already, podcast awards, go sign up, do the thing. Oh, I've slowed to 0. You still with me? Okay, good. Sorry, my internet got a little unstable for a second there. But go to the podcast awards, vote for us in games and hobbies. A handful of days left. The end of July is the last thing to do. So, please, please, please. And of course, Service Desk Pod that Metzgirl is a part of could also use your vote in technology.
Friend of the show.
And here with us live. So, yeah, that's the big one, I think.
Well, cool, Mac. How was your week, man? I don't really have a ton of, exciting stuff to share. I got a lot of gaming in, and we'll talk about that later. But other than that, it was a pretty standard week. Anything crazy happen on your end?
Oh, crazy. I don't know if I'd say crazy, although at least one thing that's both encouraging and disappointing. Let me thank you, Kane, for that subscription, sir. Woo!
Oh, shout out to Kane. So we're really taking our time getting into the gaming news this week, and that's okay. We are Twitch affiliates now, so anyone who wants to can subscribe to the channel. So thank you, Kane, for that.
Thank you. As I was saying, there's been, for 150 episodes, Mr. Nice Guy and I have streamed the show, right? We've streamed it live. Metzgirl, thanks for the subscription with your Twitch Prime. Bless you. So for 150 episodes, Mr. Nice Guy and I, we've done this show, and when we've done it, because for 150 shows, we've recorded this show, and one of us has not been able to see the other. Because of the way how OBS doesn't like to play nice with the video, conferencing that we've always been doing, we could never seem to get it to do, for us to both see each other, as well as to be able to output the thing. And then the other day I was talking about it as I was editing the podcast last week, and somebody, would have been Ish Mobile, made the most mind-blowingly simple observation ever. And so for the first time, here in episode 150, we can actually see each other as the show is being recorded for the first time, instead of only one of us being able to see the other person.
The one who is streaming, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is nice. It's nice. It makes it more connected, is how I would describe it.
Exactly. It's more like... And it's actually going to make editing easier, honestly. So it's cool. At least, I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, for the first time in forever, we see each other live, just as you guys are seeing us live as well. So that's exciting to me.
That's exactly right. It's exciting to me too. And Mac, you know what? We have so much stuff to talk about today. I say we do what we do best and hop right into the gaming news, my friend. What do you think about that?
I say we must.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as you know, this is episode number 150 of Two Nerds in a Pod, nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. And we have a bunch of news to discuss today. Let's start with the biggest, the baddest news story from the week, which is, of course, the Xbox Game Showcase, which happened on July 23rd. Now, if you're a gamer like us, I know you were watching it live. If you're maybe casual, you might have watched it after the fact, but the cool kids were watching it live. Well, there was so much stuff announced, Mac, that we're not going to be able to cover all of it, but here are some of the major highlights. And here's a little word from Xbox. This is directly from their webpage by Will Tuttle. It says, our unique vision for the next generation of gaming starts with players at the center, immersing you in riveting fun and mind-blowing experiences on any device, Mac. And that's what we're going to talk about when we get into our commentary on this. It goes on to say, we know what matters most to you, unforgettable games. Games that deeply connect you with fascinating characters, vast worlds, and great friends no matter where you are. So that said, here are some of the highlights, Mac, from the games showcase. Halo Infinite, of course, is going to be coming holiday 2020. Now, you just got done playing, I believe it was Halo CE, correct? With one of your friends on PC, co-op, right?
We finished Halo 2 on Halo C or Halo MC.
On Halo Master Chief Collection. Gotcha. So Halo Infinite's coming out. It's going to have split screen. I believe that is confirmed. Now, granted, you'll probably play cross-country with your friend, but is Halo Infinite a game you'd pick up just to do the campaign, man? Now that you're hopping back into it, not the multiplayer, Mac, the co-op, you're going to get this game. What do you think?
Maybe.
People want more details than that, dude. This is like an awkward date when you ask. So what do you like to do? Stuff. One word answers. Come on, man. What would entice you to want to get into this new version of Halo?
I don't know. I think, are you going to get into it, Mr. Nice Guy?
Dude, of course I am. But here's the thing.
You know
I have
what?
Xbox Game Pass. So I get it with the Game Pass subscription. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But does that mean that you're thinking about it? You're considering?
Well, I'm thinking about it. And if you're there, how can I not be there as well?
And, you know, me and Ish Mobile, I don't know if he's here today. We played some this weekend. We played Halo Reach. And it's crazy how Microsoft has coordinated this. I'm on Game Pass. He's playing it on Steam. You can still play together. It's pretty dope. So anyway, a couple more announcements that came. Avowed is going to be Obsidian Entertainment's next epic first-person RPG set in a fantasy world of Eora, and I'm very excited for that. It looks great. Fable fans are very excited. There's going to be a new Fable. Forza Motorsport was announced. The Gunk, Phantasy Star Online 2 is coming in 2021. Stalker 2, State of Decay 3. We'll skip some of these. Tetris Effect is exciting, but not that exciting. One thing that's interesting to me, Mac, Destiny 2 is going to be on Game Pass, and the DLC is going to be free on Game Pass. Now, the reason this is interesting to me is because Destiny is made by Bungie, who also made Halo. They kind of had to give up Halo because Microsoft owned the rights to it. So it's interesting to me that they would do an exclusive deal with the company that kind of took their IP, you know, legally. Don't you think that's strange, or am I just overthinking stuff?
I don't know. Maybe it's water under the bridge.
Yeah, maybe there's no hard feelings, and maybe they're totally cool with it. Regardless, that's going to be out November 10th, 2020. Grounded is basically like a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids type of crafting game. And here's the thing about Grounded. It is now out today on Game Preview. You may have seen me tweet that out. I downloaded the Game Preview version today and played a little bit of it. I'll give some thoughts on that later. And then a bunch of other stuff. We're getting the Outer Worlds DLC, which I am hyped for, Psychonauts 2, and many, many other awesome games. Now, Mac, here's what discussion I want to have about Games Pass and Xbox. Xbox has made it clear, or Microsoft has made it clear, that in their ecosystem, they don't care where you play. You can play on your Xbox One, you can buy their new thing, or you can play on PC. And I've seen a lot of people make the statement, well, I'm not going to buy an Xbox because I already have a PC. And so a lot of people are writing articles and saying, well, that's what Microsoft wants. Now, do you think that that's what Microsoft wants? They just want you to be in their ecosystem? Or do you think they actually want people to buy the next gen of console?
No, I think it's fairly obvious that what they're looking for is for you to get entrenched in the ecosystem rather than just the box. And I mean, they really want you to focus on Game Pass. Game Pass and being in the ecosystem. That I feel like that was pretty clearly the take homes.
And he even stated it outright. He said, "We want you to be able to play on any device, basically, right?" Here's my thing. I do have a gaming PC. You have a gaming PC, right? So we can connect and we can play without having to go and buy completely new hardware. But my suggestion would be to anyone who is on a tighter budget and really just wants to be able to play for the long term, don't spend $500 or whatever it's going to be on the Xbox Series X. Take that $500, put it towards a PC. You can still play all those Xbox games. You can still enjoy that ecosystem. You can still do party chats with your friends, but you then have a PC that can do much, much more. Mac, would you agree with that? Is that a fair assessment, or am I hating on Microsoft's strategy here?
No, I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. And I mean, I've always been more of a person who's like, hey, put that money toward a PC, don't put it toward a console. So, I mean, right. Preaching to the choir. Although I did have a couple of things that I wanted to talk about with relationship to the showcase, if I may.
Let's hear it, dude. What's up?
So, first thing is about Game Pass. I felt like they don't have enough people making games, or at least making AAA games for the Game Pass. You know what I mean?
You feel like there are not enough?
I feel like there are not enough AAA studios on board releasing their games for the Game Pass for it to be as much of a draw as they want it to be to gamers. Do you think I'm off base there?
I think that you're off base. And I feel like there's a lot of AAA games that come to Game Pass after the fact. So if you're talking about on release, I might agree with you. But keep in mind that every single game that was shown in the game showcase is going to be available either free to play or on Game Pass. Okay. And I feel like there's a good amount of AAAs. We got Halo. I guess Forza's kind of. Outer Worlds, I would consider that to be a AAA game, and that was on Game Pass day one. Gears of War 5, Gears 5 was on Game Pass. So I feel like there's a lot, but I will say there's a lot more indies than AAA. So you're right about that.
And, that may change over time. I just feel like the makeup seems not quite enough. But, hopefully that changes in the near future. Although there was one other thing that I thought bore mentioning, and that was the apparent confusion, I guess, surrounding the compatibility with the previous gen, because it sounded like at one point in time they were saying that all launch titles would be compatible with the previous gen, and then they walked it back later and said that, that like it'll be a studio by studio decision basis whether or not it'll be compatible with the One S as opposed to the Series X.
That's 100% right. Yeah, Phil Spencer had initially said that, and they kind of backpedaled. Correct.
So I'm not having crazy pills. That was something that went on then.
You're right about that. Yeah.
So, like, what's going on? That seems like something that you shouldn't have gotten wrong when talking about it,
Yeah, you and I are both fairly forgiving, but to me, that is a major selling point, right? Of the Game Pass is that, everything is going to be play where you want to play, not a studio by studio decision. And so for them to backpedal on that, I agree, that's frustrating. But once again, they're not really forcing people to choose between Xbox and PlayStation. They're forcing people to choose between buying Game Pass or not buying Game Pass. And I don't think that one thing is going to hurt their sales that much. And they've really done a good job, Mac, of putting Game Pass in the hands of gamers. I have Xbox Game Pass, and the way that I got it is they had a deal going on where if you had Xbox Live and you purchased Game Pass for $1, it would extend your Game Pass for the life of however long you had Xbox Live. So it allowed you to purchase up to 3 years of Xbox Live, and then for $1, you could get Game Pass for that whole time. And so that's what I did. So I'm set with Game Pass for several years. Now, why would they do that? They're losing money, but they're also locking people into their ecosystem. I'm locked in for the next couple years, and so are many, many others. So I think that they're being smart in some ways, but they just got to figure out how they're going to market it exactly. But it's a great deal.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's nice to see that my relentless catechism, my relentless discussion of games, of game ownership and consumer rights in video games is echoed in the chat by, at the very least, Galvatron, and I hope all of us are thinking somewhere along these lines, with the implications of Game Pass being, is this the death, the death throes of game ownership?
No, because nothing's stopping you from buying the game if you want to buy it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's how they get you, because if you have Game Pass, they give you a discount to purchase an actual copy of the game. It's usually like 20% off or something like that. Sometimes there's additional sales at higher discounts. But also, I mean, if you really want a hard copy, nothing's stopping you from buying a hard copy.
Nothing yet.
Yeah, they're still putting out hard copies or digital copies, which I know you don't like. But here's the thing. A lot of these games that are on Game Pass are timed exclusives, right? Mm-hmm. GTA 5 was on there in March. It is now not on there anymore. They replaced it and put Red Dead Redemption and some other stuff. And so sometimes Game Pass gives you a taste of a AAA title, and then it's gone. And if you want to keep playing it, you have to purchase it, right? So I feel like that's one of their strategies as well, so that you still do have the option to buy those games.
Mm-hmm.
So... well, cool. That's a great discussion. Let's keep things moving. Great comments in the chat. We appreciate all of y'all's. Let's talk about Nintendo for a minute. Mac's favorite company. And Mac, we got some really interesting news. Now, no matter how you feel about Nintendo, we're not going to sit here and deny that they're iconic, right? They put out some of the best exclusives in gaming. And recently there was a leak this week, a huge leak known as the Nintendo Giga Leak. And this is on IGN.com by Joe Scribbles. It says 2 major drops of confidential Nintendo code and documentation, now popularly referred to as the Nintendo Giga Leak, have seemingly revealed previously unknown canceled games, prototypes, source code development tools, etc. So, Mac, we're just going to go through some of this stuff. And the thing I want to ask you is, some of these games look like they could have been kind of close to complete. What's stopping Nintendo from putting any of these out? That's the question I have. Here's some of the stuff before we jump into that conversation. Super Mario 64, Luigi has been discovered as a potential playable character. There's video of it. There's a canceled Pokemon MMO, dude, from 2004. People are asking for that now. Apparently, it was pitched to Nintendo back then. Zelda Ocarina of Time, some maps were cut. Obviously, that happens with every game. I believe the same thing applied to Majora's Mask. Prototype for Yoshi's Island, Super Donkey, which is a early version of Yoshi's Island. It looks like it would have been kind of fun. Prototypes for Super Mario Kart and Mario Kart 64 were released, or were leaked, I should say. Canceled Zelda 3/Zelda 2 remake, Mac. This is big. That would have been great. It looks like it's in the style of the Super Nintendo Legend of Zelda, one of the most popular ones ever made. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl Beta looks very quality. Pilot Wings prototype, and it goes on and on and on. So, Mac, what's to stop Nintendo from releasing any of this stuff for the benefit of gamers, for the benefit of preservation?
So, are you asking what's stopping them from releasing, like, the games, or from releasing the content that's already been leaked?
So let me rephrase that. That's a great question. So some of these are like close to complete games, it looks like. Mm-hmm. The Pokemon MMO, potentially. There also was an ice hockey MMO that was a NES game that was potentially almost done. What's stopping Nintendo from saying, hey, here's some of the stuff we were working on. It's not complete, but we want you to enjoy the effort that was put into this. You know, pay what you want, or whatever. However they want to release it, why not do that, you know?
I wish I knew, Mr. Nice Guy, I wish I knew why Nintendo decides some of the things that it decides, because I, for one, feel very much like seeing iterations of games, seeing the way that things change over time is very appealing to me. One of the things that I quite enjoyed from the Mega Man Legacy Collection 1, which was made by Digital Eclipse, is that they took a lot of time to include things in that release that was work in progress stuff. Things that were cut,
for sure.
developer interviews, documentation, so on and so forth. All of these things that really shed light on how stuff progressed over time. And I for one, love seeing that stuff. I love seeing
Me
it.
too.
I love having it as occasionally coffee table book or whatever. But
Right.
I can't get enough of video games and the kind of effort that goes into them. So I just don't know. For me, it's an incredibly appealing concept. I wish they would. Maybe this will help them think that it's worth doing.
And what's interesting about it is they've kind of started to do this a little bit. They released Star Fox 2 when they released the SNES Mini. That was a game that never actually released during the lifespan of the Super Nintendo. But later they said, hey, this game was done. Let's put it out. And I'm not suggesting that they just put out, random little pieces of levels that they were working on that are unfinished and completely raw. But I do think it'd be great to release those extra Zelda maps. If there's extra Zelda dungeons for Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, do you know how many gamers would jump at the idea of playing that? How many gamers would be willing to pay, to play those maps? I think that Nintendo could only benefit from it. And release it with what's the word I'm looking for? With the disclaimer that, hey, this was a work in progress. It obviously didn't make the final cut, but it's no different than when you're watching a movie and they have, cut scenes, deleted scenes, right? You get to see some outtakes. You get to see some stuff that didn't make the final cut. It makes you appreciate what actually did come out.
Yeah, I'm, for one, very, very grateful. Whoever it is that's doing this leaking, I'm of two minds. On the one hand, I don't care too much for it when people are hacking, but on the other hand, I just don't know where these things would go. While there's kind of two things. On the one hand, people are like, oh, Nintendo hangs on to a lot of their stuff in comparison to some other game companies. There are plenty of times where Nintendo likely doesn't have the originals anymore, like, as evidenced by the fact that they used a ROM downloaded from the internet to put for the original Super Mario Brothers on the NES Classic, on the first one. And, also they did that for the ROM file that they were selling you on the Wii Virtual Console, and I think as well on the Switch, because they just used the same thing. Does that mean that they don't have the original file for Super Mario Brothers anymore? Possibly, if they decided to turn to ROM files in order to sell you stuff, because they...
That's a really good point.
But, I mean, so whoever this is, I'm grateful for them helping to preserve some history, especially because we don't know now, nor will we potentially ever know whether or not this is stuff that Nintendo has on hand or could put out there for the history books, if you will, in the future. So,
yeah,
I mean, without understanding what is available, I'm just grateful for the scraps.
No, I'm with you, dude. Well, cool. So much good conversation came from those two news stories. We're going to keep it moving, but I do want to let people know before we move on that Cuphead was sneak released for PS4 today. If that is an indie game that you have not played, I absolutely recommend that you do, especially if you were just waiting for it because you didn't have access to it somewhere else. And that has been our news for the week.
All right. Well, now that we've looked around us, let's take a look into the past. And let's start with a somewhat regrettable thing in 2015. Do you remember the Ouya, Mr. Nice Guy?
Oh, of course I remember the Ouya, man.
I don't know if it is still the highest, Kickstarter, the most grossing Kickstarter ever, but it was certainly up there. It was in 2015, this last week, that the Ouya was discontinued. So... And I mean, for a device with R.I.P. And for a device with so much promise, it really couldn't go the distance, unfortunately. And there's a variety of reasons I could probably offer my opining, but nonetheless, it overpromised and underdelivered, and it's a shame.
I just, real quick, I just
Sure.
feel like anyone who's trying to make a modern console outside of the big 3,
Mhm.
it's just not happening. You know what I mean? We had the N-Gage once upon a time that was like a gaming phone. We've had the Ouya. Right now we have, what's that one? I can't even remember the name of it. The streaming machine. It's just not getting it done. The one that's strictly streaming. The
Oh,
name
you
leaves
mean
me
the
right now.
Stadia?
The Stadia, I should know. Yeah, it's just not getting it done. Other than retro remakes of consoles, I just feel like people need to leave it to them.
And I have to admit, while I am somewhat sympathetic to what you're saying, that's kind of what people said around the time that Microsoft launched the original Xbox in the early 2000s. They were like, "Why is Microsoft getting into this game?" And I mean, I feel like it's a tough road, but I have to believe in my heart of hearts that it's not impossible, because someday we'll have the two nerds box, and it'll be great.
Dude, do you know that Soldier Boy has a gaming console?
Soldier Boy does not have a gaming console.
Yes, he does.
What Soldier Boy has is a rebranded console that's already being produced in China. That's what Soldier Boy has.
Superman. Anyway, I'm sorry, Mac. Please continue.
And I have one of the un-Soldier Boy branded handhelds that he drop shipped in, had his badging put on, and and put out there. So I mean, that's all I'm saying.
There you go.
But good luck to everybody. In perhaps more impactful gaming news, it was this last week in 2017 that we saw the release of Fortnite. Love it or loathe it, Fortnite has certainly left its indelible mark on video gaming. Much of what we take for granted as gaming today in these last couple of years has shifted a lot thanks to the popularity of battle royales and dancing in video games, lawsuits over dancing emotes. I mean, it's interesting. Do that, Carlton. In 2015, we saw the release of Journey for the PS4. Journey is an absolutely lovely game. If you, like me, don't have a PS4, you can get it on Steam. But it's a lovely game, well worth playing. The soundtrack is amazing. The atmosphere is delightful. And I have more than one Dungeons and Dragons character has been based off of some of the stuff from Journey, and I'll just leave that there, at least for mine. But the main event, the thing that you're all here for, back in 2012, the release of Final Fantasy I for the Android operating system. Now, why is this big news, you might ask? Well, if you Google FF1 Android, you'll notice that the first vidya that comes up is a review by yours truly, or at least it is whenever I Google FF1 Android. So we'll see if anybody who's here with us live can reproduce my results. But it was actually one of my bigger YouTube reviews back when I was still doing that stuff on YouTube. And precisely because it was kind of the super laziest of ports you could do. How lazy was it, I hear you ask, Mr.
How
Nice Guy?
How lazy was it?
Exactly. It's like there's an echo in here. Mr. Nice Guy, it was so lazy that what they did was Square Enix took the PSP port of Final Fantasy I, which we're not going to go too far down the rabbit hole, but they took that and then they ported it over, the PSP port of FF1, they ported it to iOS. And then they took the iOS port and ported it straight over to YouTube. And I don't know if you knew this, Mr. Nice Guy, but back in those days, the iOS system all had the same resolution across all the phones and the tablets. Like, it was all the same. But Android phones and tablets tended to have different sizes and therefore different resolutions. So depending upon the tablet or the phone that you possessed when you downloaded this iOS port, you could have it only taking up about 66 or less % of the screen. And on top of that, the virtual buttons only showed up on the screen portion because they basically just took the iOS code, spiffed it up so that it would run in Android and threw it over there with absolutely no respect for the scaling on devices. Just the laziest of ports. Anyway, so that is at least special to me because that wound up being a really, it wound up really being a really big video for me, a big kind of moment back in the YouTube days. Enough about that. Oh, thanks. I'm glad you like it, but enough about that. That's some gaming news for you today.
Awesome. Well, moving on, we are going to talk about the topic of the week, something relevant in gaming, and give our opinions on it. The hottest story on the interwebs. And this one deals with, Mac, your homie, your boy, your college roommate, Joe Rogan.
Oh, those were dark days back at university, but I think I'm now ready to talk about that time in my life.
Quick disclaimer, Mac never did nor will he ever live with Joe Rogan.
Well, back in the day, it was me, Joe Rogan, and Carlos Santana. Carlos Santana's the reason I'm named Maction, after all. So
there's a time for words.
And there's a time.
And there's a time for Maction.
Indeed, yes, I will accept the title, because when Carlos Santana gives you a nickname, you stick with it.
That's exactly right.
Disclaimer, his name was in fact Carlos Santana, but it was not that Carlos Santana. So, and Mr. Nice Guy's right, I was not roommates to Joe Rogan, but carry on, Mr. Nice Guy.
Anyway, so Joe Rogan, I'm not going to lie. So full disclaimer, I like his podcast, but typically I'm listening to it based on who the guest is, right? Mm-hmm. I want to know what Elon Musk has to say. Maybe I want to know what Kevin Hart has to say about stand-up comedy. So based on the guest, I'll listen to a Joe Rogan Experience every once in a while. I also think he's a great interviewer. This week he said something that ruffled the feathers, Mac, of many gamers in the gaming industry. This is on GameRant.com. Let's jump right into it. So speaking with... Oh, and by the way, we like to give credit where credit's due. This is by Colin Williams. It says, speaking with CEO and founder of Spartan and the Death Race, Joe DeSana. Joe Rogan had a lot to say when the issue of video games came up, discussing how many kids take refuge in the pastime when there's no inspiration in their home lives. According to Rogan, quote, video games are a real problem, end quote, going on to describe how they're simply too fun. Continuing his train of thought, he claims, quote, they're real exciting, but you don't get anywhere. Comparing the experience to training in jiu-jitsu for 3 years, Rogan sees the two experiences as being quite similar, with fighters getting obsessed over the sport in the same way players get obsessed with video games. However, he claims that the end result is much more financially lucrative than being a gamer, claiming you could teach others how to fight on a smaller scale for large sums of cash. So, Mac, he's basically saying...
Whoa, hang on a second. Did Joe Rogan just say that a good financial plan is learn to fight and then get paid to teach other kids how to fight? Is that what I'm hearing? Is he like Kid Fight Club? This is how you get money, kids? Don't waste your time on video games. Children's Fight Club. That's
it's like buying fighting fish, but instead using children. No, that's not what he was saying. To put this into context, because I listened to the clip, he was saying that if you learn jiu-jitsu, you can open a gym. You can say, hey, if I get X number of students a month paying me X number of dollars a month, I can start to make a living. And he was trying to argue that that's not really the case with video games. So, Mac, broad question, man. What do you think about his statements here?
Okay, so it is... I don't know. It's still hard to open a jiu-jitsu gym. I don't know what the licensing body is for opening a gym, but I don't think I could go and open a judo or jiu-jitsu gym or whatever, but that's beside the point. Grappling with the issue directly... Sure. The idea of video games being a waste of time, or maybe not even a waste of time, but fully contextualizing that it's a less efficient use of your time, I heartily disagree. I feel like the point is, in video games and in any entertainment and media, that if you are enjoying yourself, more than you would have without that, then inherently it's worth something. Even if that worth is intangible and it's just to you, it's still something. The hours that I spend playing a video game, I mean, sure, I could be doing other things, but I mean, if I'm having a good time, why should I feel bad or sad or frustrated about that? Or why should I focus on what I've given up if I enjoyed myself? And maybe...
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
No, you're 100% right. So what I'd like to do before I share my thoughts, I asked people in the Discord in advance of the show. I said, this is going to be our topic of the week. Please give me some of your thoughts on this. So we got a few responses, so I'm going to read some of those. Salty Waters, good friend of the show, great Destiny 2 streamer. He said, I think it comes down to moderation. I feel too much of a good thing can be bad. Priorities and stuff like that. Uncle Ruckus said, screw Rogan. All he talks about is drugs and UFC. Also likes to be a big brain human, but really just a huge stoner. Some strong opinions from Uncle Ruckus. And then Mets Girl said, sure, video games are a waste of time. So is reading fiction or watching other people exercise / play physical games or needlepoint or baking frivolous cakes and pastries or walking through the woods just to look at things. But these are all pastimes that bring people pleasure and help with mental well-being. All are valid hobbies. And I think that hits the nail on the head right there, Mac. I'm a 30-something-year-old guy. I have a family, right? I have a job. I have a mortgage. I have bills. But I handle my business. And at the end of the day, I want to just forget about the stresses and even the joys of the day. I want to just escape into a fantasy world and fight dragons. Or, play a puzzle game or play a card game or whatever it may be. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I have one other point I want to make, but I want to open it back up to you to give more thoughts.
So my thoughts, I think I've spoken my piece and counted to 3. I mean, I have gone the rounds with people before about video games and what their value is. And, there have been some times in my life where I was, like, in kind of a dark place. And maybe it wasn't the healthiest thing to drop hour after hour after hour into Minecraft. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I feel like it's important to properly contextualize. And for me, video games very often help me to recharge my batteries when life's getting me down. And it's been great for me. And I'm sure that there are people who have troubles. And there are certain games that I avoid because I know that they'll suck me in. Like, I don't play Civilization games anymore because I know it'll just tank everything else in my life. And so I just stay away from it. But, I mean, so speaking to that, in moderation thing, totally agree, totally here. Sorry, that's my meandering thoughts on it.
No, you're good. Now, Kane brings up another valid point that's similar to what Mets Girl said in the chat. Kane says, it could be applied to many things like sports, right? It could be applied to anything, no matter what your hobby is. Now, to be fair, Joe Rogan says that he plays games and that he realizes how fun they are and that they can be addicting. Now, not every hobby has to be with the purpose of getting you somewhere, right? And the thing that was most interesting to me about this is that he's a comedian, right? Now, I'm a comedian, much lesser comedian as far as my notoriety than Joe Rogan, but I think about open mics, Mac. When I go to an open mic or when I go somewhere to do a set to work on material, if there's a list and there's 30 people on the list, each doing 3 to 5 minutes, if I'm later on the list, I could potentially have to wait 3 hours, just to do my 5 minutes of new jokes. And on top of it, maybe there's a drink minimum. Maybe I have to buy a couple sodas. That's $10, right? Something like that. I had to drive 40 minutes to get there, 40 minutes home. It turns into my whole evening. I don't see how video games are less a waste of time than doing an open mic, right? Which is how Joe Rogan got where he is today, in part, is by doing stand-up comedy. So I guess I thought that his opinions were a little bit harsh, just based on the fact that he grinded for many, many years in comedy and podcasting to get where he is. And knowing that the majority of comedians are wasting their time when they do stand-up comedy because 99% of them will never make significant money doing so. Same thing applies to gaming. So I felt like it was a little bit of a double standard. Those are my thoughts. appreciate y'all all writing in with your thoughts, and that has been our topic of the week.
All right, well, now let's turn our eyes to a crowdfunding project that's trying to get off of the ground. We're taking a look at a little something called Puzzle Explorers. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. You can go ahead and have a peek. And we're going to talk about some of the virtues, the vices, and say whether or not we think it should be kicked out of here or whether we think it should be kick-started. So, join me on a journey. Puzzle Explorers. A Tangledeep story. Now, if Tangledeep sounds familiar, it is actually a game that was successfully kickstarted a couple of years back. These guys are back for more in the same universe. We've got some... You want pixels? We got it. You like sort of a Tetris-y style, but more of Tetris Attack? They've got it here. Now, full disclosure, this is not usually my thing. I had, of course, what was it? It was like the Street Fighter Puzzle Fighter, the Street Fighter Puzzle Fighter arcade game back in that arcade that I used to work at back in the early 2000s. But I've never been much of a puzzle fighter person. That being said, still want to give it its time and its hearing. It's a $15 minimum buy-in. They're looking for $20,000 to bring this project to life. They've got 23 days left to go, and it looks like they're on pretty good pace. It's going to be deliverable sometime around the middle of the year 2021, and they're hoping that they'll have it out for beta to the backers sometime around Q4 of 2020, Q1 of 2021. Now, you know me, Mr. Nice Guy. If you're going to ask for my money, you need to show me that you can bring together all the various parts of a video game, and no better way to do that than with a playable demo. And I'm happy to report that it does have a playable demo. So it's somebody who's succeeded in delivering on a Kickstarter project before. It has a playable demo, so you know what you're getting into, and you know how it plays, even though it's a pre-alpha build, of course, as with all these things. It's not exactly my thing, but I can see the appeal. There's a little bit of an open world 2D side-scrolling thing going on, with upgrades and the like. But, you know, Mr. Nice Guy, how does this strike you?
My first instinct is that I don't like it. I guess I'm having trouble wrapping my head around exactly what they're trying to do. You know, it seems like they're just combining two genres that are completely different and trying to force it into some type of keyhole that doesn't fit. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm wrong. Has there been any other game like this that's been successful that you've heard of?
You know, I'm not the best person to ask about successful games. My head is firmly entrenched in the past, as we know. But what I recollect from things is that there are lots of fans of puzzle fighting games like Tetris Attack or like Street Fighter Puzzle Fighters. There have been many very popular games in that genre. And again, the genre's not for me, and arguably, like you're saying, they're kind of putting two genres together here. That since the puzzle portion side of things has never been my scene, I couldn't say if there have been any multi-genre puzzle fighters that have been successful in the past. I just don't know because I've avoided it.
Yeah, and to me, like, I don't know. I like that they're doing something unique, you know? And it kind of tugs at my heartstrings because this guy's profile pic on Kickstarter is a picture of him and his daughter. So, like, I anyone who has kids and they're trying to, like, do their thing as their side hustle, like, I have a soft spot for that. But I guess I just don't get why these two genres are being combined into one. And I hope that I'm wrong, but I'm just not really seeing the vision.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the vision more if it was a side-scrolling platformer. As you know, that's my thing. Or more of a side-scrolling or somewhat RPG straight up. But yeah, I just don't see the vision either. It doesn't appeal to me, this puzzle fighter with RPG elements going on. And Yeah, and I just don't know. I mean, obviously, in a puzzle fighter, your attacks are based off of how well you're Tetrising. In this case, it's called a falling block puzzle, but it's Tetris. And
exactly.
but it's one of those that that there is something to be said about combining rhythm and timing in a battle situation, like for example, Crypt of the Necrodancer / Cadence of Hyrule. Tying rhythm and timing into those things can make a more interesting overall game, but I'm just not entirely convinced. So I think it's time for us to weigh in. What do you think?
It is time.
It is time.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to pass on this one, dog. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, hey, don't apologize to me.
I was trying to sound like the dude from American Idol, like, yo, dog, listen, I'm out on this one. I really just can't, Mac. It's not a bad Kickstarter, but I just don't see the vision, and I don't see anything about this that makes me think it will fit a niche that is not yet filled.
Sure.
So I kick.
And in keeping with the American Idol theme here, I'll try and be the Simon Cowell with, this is the worst, not the worst Kickstarter we've ever seen, but, I mean, what are you even going for here? And, I mean, I don't know how good that was, but I'm
fantastic.
I'm with you on the kick. I feel like it has some promise, but it's just not my genre, and I really don't see the vision, and I'll have to go kick. And it looks like Metzgirl's with us on the kick. However, Spennis and Kane are coming in hot with the hot takes and the kickstart on these. So yeah, it's still a divided chat. It's still a divided opinion. And those of you who are listening to this after the fact, you're on your commutes, just yell it out, kick or kickstart. Let us know. We're tabulating the results from here.
Well, Mac, here's one question that I have. Did you ever say what console?
Oh, PC and Switch.
Okay, so at least he's putting it on the console that I really like to see this type of stuff on. Right?
Of course.
Kick, I just don't see this being a big thing.
Sure.
And honestly,
I'm with
if it's going to be on Switch, I feel like $15 is too cheap for the Kickstarter, but I like that it's reasonably priced. I'll give him credit for that as well.
Awesome. Well, that's been Kick or Kickstart.
Fantastic. Well, it is time, ladies and gentlemen, for our next segment, a segment called Nerd Flex.
Woohoo.
A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the host, and I introduce this in a different way every single week. It's a trivia segment, right? So, Mac, I told the people in advance to come with those trivia questions, and I believe that Spinnis may have one left over from last week. We'll wait and see. But before we do that, we'll jump into our little test bank of questions.
All right, let's do it.
And we'll answer some of these. So, the first one is a Nintendo-based question. Who is the robot that was originally released as a peripheral with the NES?
Well, there's only...
And I should know this. You know it good.
I know it. Do you?
I do, but it's on the tip of my tongue.
It's Rob.
I can picture it. It is. I was going to say Ralph.
Yep. Rob stands for Robotic Operating Buddy, if I remember right. Released with Gyromite, I think. I'm pretty sure the name of the game was Gyromite. A quick side note about Gyromite is that in a lot of those cartridges, they just took the Famicom 60-pin cartridge and put a converter inside of it to 72 pins. So if you are someone who's in North America and you want a 72-pin NES conversion for a Famicom game, you can get one out of some of the Gyromite cartridges. So
what was the purpose of Rob?
The idea of Rob was to try and pitch the NES as more of an entertainment system as opposed to just a game console. We had just gotten through the video game crash, and so, places were very hesitant to take on a new gaming console. And so when Nintendo was just like, oh, well, this is an entertainment system. Look, we even have a robot. And so it was stuff like that. It was basically a gimmick to try and make toy stores and things like that take the chance on the NES.
Gotcha. Well, the bottom line is, Mac, you were 100% right with that question, or with that answer, rather, and you gave us a history lesson. So, now some people in the chat are trying to say that question was too easy. And I feel like that's not common knowledge. I'm not saying that was a tough question, but I don't think that that's common knowledge.
Sure, and do keep in mind the question bank there is actually from a book of it's a book of video game video game trivia. So they kind of have it more generalized, which is why, of course, if you think the questions are too easy, come at us, bring the heat.
Please bring one right now. But for now, I have a second question.
Let's do it.
Unless you see something in the chat, Mac, let me know. Next question is, which Hollywood actor does the voice of protagonist Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid?
I should know this, but I am coming up a complete blank.
I actually do know this. And the reason why I know this is because I'm a huge fan of the TV show 24.
Is it Jack Bauer?
It's Jack Bauer, but Jack Bauer was the name of the character. The name of the actor.
Hang on. It's like Kiefer, like the drink.
Yeah. Kiefer Sutherland. Yeah. Fun fact. Also, Donald Sutherland's son. My wife and I just got done watching The Hunger Games. This is a timely question. But anyway, that is the answer. Final answer. Mac, you gonna go with me on this?
Oh yeah, I'll go with you.
Do you want to branch out and say like Edward Norton?
Nope, 100% with you.
Or Mike Tyson? No, okay. Well, it looks like that one is correct. Kiefer Sutherland. That one was easy for me. So did anyone have anything in the chat yet? If not, we'll just go for a third.
We'll go for a third because people are coming with objections. Like there are two actors who have portrayed Snake. More recently, David Hayter has played Solid Snake.
That's true.
But this book was published a couple of years back, so I suspect it's before then. Exactly right. Oh, hang on. We've got one from Mets Girl.
Let's hear it, Mets Girl.
What character wields a laser gun in the game Earthbound for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System? And
I'm pretty sure. Go ahead, say who you think it is, and then I'll say who I think it is.
I can't even tell you the names of the characters of Earthbound. So this is all you.
I am 99% sure that it's Ness.
I thought Ness had like a yo-yo.
Dang it, you might be right.
Because in Smash Brothers, in Smash Brothers, he's got that yo-yo and he goes PK Fire. So, but yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it's got to be one of his companions. Is one of the characters from Earthbound like an alien? Because it would make sense for an alien to have a laser. But I just don't know. I'm going to have to yield to you.
Dang it. I mean, Ness is the only Earthbound character whose name I can remember. So, and she already said no, so we know we're wrong on this one, and we weren't going to think of anything else.
Yeah, but we at least went 2 for 3 on this one. It's not the protagonists. Oh, it must be an antagonist then. Interesting. So I definitely don't know. I suspect it's an alien that wields, a gun, but a laser gun.
I have no idea.
We're going to take the loss on that.
To get that answer in the chat, and that has been Nerdflex for the week. Hit us up. Now she gives us multiple choice.
Okay,
Fantastic. Sweet.
A. Ness, B. Pooh, C. Paula, and D. Jeff.
There's a character named Pooh in Earthbound.
I guess so. I'm gonna say Jeff because
I'm gonna stick with Ness.
Okay.
I'm going to stick with it just out of stubbornness.
So we're divided. He says A, Ness. I say D, Jeff. Let us know who's correct. But I think I'm willing to take the loss on this one and settle for just not having been clean swept one way or the other and calling that a win. Hey, it's Jeff. I'm right by guessing, by golly. So,
good work.
Dude, it looks like between the two of us as a unit, 3 out of 3 today. And Spennis, hang on to that Pokemon question for next time. Yeah, Ness wields a baseball bat. Yes, that sounds familiar. Well, okay, so now it's time for us to talk a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
And I promised that in the month of July, we were going to talk about the idea of how real is too real, or in general, what you're allowed to do in your video games. You know, if you're making a video game, what can you do? We talked people. Can you put people in there? Can you put real places? Can you put real things? We talked last time about events, and now it is ideas. And this one's a really short one. The answer is, yeah, you're cool for ideas. And one of the reasons is that you can't really copyright an idea. You can't, your trademark, your copyright can't really cover that. You may remember back when PUBG and Epic were fighting about Battle Royale games. And they were like, dudes, you can't reserve a genre to yourself under the copyright for your video game. You can't copyright the ideas. You can only copyright the expression, the specific expression of idea. And I will give a quick quote from the case behind Tetris and some of the Tetris clones, quoting directly from the ruling. These are entitled to copyright protection for the way in which it chooses to express game rules or gameplay, as one would be to the way in which one chooses to express an idea. And that is what's covered. That is what you have to be worried about. There is nobody who has a copyright on an idea. There is no idea that you are disallowed from including in your game. There is only the very specific, unique expression of an idea that can prevent you from using it in your game. So, is any idea too real for you to be used in video games? No. They're fair game. Enjoy to the fullest, my friends. Just remember, different names, different places, and be careful about how you portray some events. Sorry, it's a really short legalese, because, I mean, like,
Oh, you're good, man.
you know, had to keep with a theme, but, I mean, you know, it's really straightforward. So,
Well, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to episode number 150 of Two Nerds in a Pod. Now, before we go, we have one last segment we like to do called What We've Been Watching and What We've Been Playing, where we talk about just that, the cool, nerdy stuff that we've been into on all different platforms. Mac, who's leading off? I always forget. Do I lead off on this, or do you want to?
you know, I'll lead off on this tonight. You know, normally I prefer you to lead off because I've just done a 10-minute rant on legalese,
Well, dude,
but this one's
Are
easy.
you sure then?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
good?
My vocal cords are rested. I'm good. So I've been watching The Marvelous Miss Maisel. Mrs. the Mac and I, we've been watching new X-Files, you know, from when they rebooted the series in the late 2010s. We've been also watching a Netflix series called Love on the Spectrum. And it is so delightfully charming. Highly recommend. That's pretty much all we've been watching. We've also been watching Star Trek, but we're always watching Star Trek. It's our comfort food. It's our comfort blanket. It really is.
It's like water. You know, you just gotta have a little bit of it.
Gotta have it. As for playing, I've been playing a little bit of Halo Master Chief Collection. Specifically, we're on Halo 3, myself and my buddy. And I was also playing a little bit of Sunless Sea. Getting into that. I love the Lovecraftian stuff. And, you know, Lovecraftian on the high seas, it's also kind of nice too. And obviously always playing indeed. And of course we've always been playing, you know, some GURPS. We've got the Firefly game on Mondays, the After the Apocalypse game with us on Thursdays, and wouldn't have it any other way.
Nice. Well, obviously, I have been playing some GURPS as well every Thursday with Mac, Metzgirl, and Ish Mobile. Ish Mobile and I teamed up this weekend, and we played some Halo Reach, like I mentioned earlier. Had a lot of fun doing that. It runs really, really well on PC. Shout out to Game Pass. I really think that they're killing it with this, Mac. I said that earlier, but I'll give them another shout out. I think this is great, what they are doing. Also, I played a little bit of that new game preview game on Game Pass today called Grounded. It's the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids like game. I don't know if it's for me. And it's not because it's not polished. It's not because it's in early preview. It's just because I don't like games where I have to go collect a bunch of stuff. And then you collect this and then you build this and, you know, this plus this makes this. But if you don't have enough pieces, like if that's the whole point of the game, then I get frustrated. And maybe I was just too early into it to really realize what the full thing is about. But I did not have fun with it in the 30 minutes that I played. I'm not going to judge a whole game based on 30 minutes, though, right? What else? That's pretty much it as far as what I've been playing. Oh, Teamfight Tactics as well with my brother. But as far as what I've been watching, my wife and I finished The Hunger Games. Always forget how, like, not happy that last movie is. But we finished watching that, and I think that's pretty much it. We got less stuff in the chat this week than normal, but that's totally cool. Y'all have been doing more important stuff than video games and TV. Mac, why don't you read some and I'll read some?
Sure. Galvatron's watching Dr. Sleep. Surprisingly good. It Chapter 2. Apparently he was rooting for Pennywise. And Cursed on Netflix, which apparently we should avoid. And Metzgirl's been watching John Mulaney's New in Town. World War II something or other. Hamilton and The Expanse. Some lovely choices there.
Now, dude, just like a throwback. When John Mulaney's New in Town came out, didn't you and I get together and watch that?
Yeah, we did.
I feel like was that your place or my place? I think it was at your place.
I'm pretty sure it was my place, yeah.
Because we both like John Mulaney. Great writer.
Oh, yeah.
Great comedian. Cool. Well, as far as what people have been playing, what do we got here? Metzgirl is playing Ticket to Ride, GURPS, D&D, and the Llama game. If you like the Llama game, you should try Untitled Goose Game. If you like those types of games, Untitled Goose Game is brilliant. Galvatron is playing Carrion, which is a reverse Metroidvania game where you are the bad blob that eats people. And yes, I've been following that game. It looks amazing. And it is available on Game Pass. I think I have it downloaded, ready to play when I get some time. Resident Evil 3, Forza Motorsport 7, Ghost of Tsushima. It starts slow but gets better, he says. Spennis has been playing Ghost of Tsushima and MLB, but Fall Guys next week, which is the free PS Plus title for next month. And Goose Game is on Metzgirl's list, she says. Well, Mac, that's it. Do you want to take us away this week?
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here and being a part of the show. It wouldn't be anywhere near as fun without you challenging us, from your insightful commentary to your attempts to stump us, which have come to naught, of course. But we are appreciative. Y'all are the greatest viewers on Twitch. You are the best listeners on any podcast platform. Be sure to get out there and vote for us. Just a few more days, please, and thank you. And tell all of...
podcastawards.com.
Yes. And be sure to click to nominate there on the homepage, because they show on their homepage last year's winners. You have to click on the nominate your things and then, go through a quick thing. Anyway, point being, y'all are awesome. You're the greatest. We already miss you, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
See ya.
Now I'm gonna stop.